One of the most controversial figures in modern Star Wars has stepped away. And depending on who you ask, that's either the best news ever or completely meaningless. Today we're talking Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilms, and what actually changes, if anything. Welcome to Catalyst Corner. I'm Evan.
I'm Jim.
And this is Season 5. If you're new, this is a pop culture podcast where we talk movies, TV, nerd stuff, and the business that shapes it. Not all hype, not all hate, just honest takes. We've done a lot of episodes. This season we're tightening things up. Fewer topics, stronger opinions, and actually saying what we think instead of just summarizing plots. Here's a quick heads up on how the show works this season. We'll start with the breakdown, our main topic. Then we go off the cuff with quick takes. We hit the watch list for what we've been watching and wrap with the pulse, where we pull in listeners' thoughts. So let's get into the breakdown. Kathleen Kennedy has left Lucasfilms. Jim, how do you feel about that?
I could not be happier that finally occurred.
I agree with you. So before we get into it, let's set a little context here.
Yeah.
So Kathleen Kennedy has been the leader of Lucasfilms for over a decade at this point. She oversaw the sequel trilogy.
Yep.
So The Force Awakens,
Last Jedi,
and Rise of Skywalker. And she was also a big part of the Disney Plus kind of their experiment with Disney Plus, adding all these Star Wars TV shows, and you know that includes Mandalorian, Andor, Obi-Wan, Clone Wars Season 6,
Ahsoka,
yep. And then I believe
The Acolyte, everyone's favorite.
The Acolyte, and also there were a couple of kids shows, I think, as well. A couple animated kids shows as well. So I guess my first question to you is, you know, and throughout our podcasting history, we've been pretty vocal about how we feel that Star Wars is broken. But is Star Wars broken because of the leadership or because of the corporate system?
I think that it absolutely is the leadership.
Okay, so you think you know that sort of analytic heavy corporate entity that works off of spreadsheets and everything is less so to blame than who's steering the ship ultimately.
Right, because you know Bob Iger gave them, being Lucasfilm, the money, right? These shows were very expensive, right? So there was no budget restraints. For the most part, he greenlit everything that was presented to him. So I don't think that Disney really were a hindrance in what was put out. I think they were a good partner in what the amount that was allowed to come out and the money that was behind all the projects. So I don't think that they were a hindrance to the product.
So that kind of begs a deeper question of, because there was, you know, Iger was in initially, right? And he sort of set this precedent that there were no restraints for the Kathleen Kennedy era of Lucasfilms, right? And then he retired, and we got Chapek, who came in. And how much of that do you think? And again, Chapek was really a theme park guy, right? So then now he's handled the reins to this huge corporation, and I don't know if that's just something that slipped his gaze, so to speak, before ultimately he was ousted. But do you think, you know, having the previous CEO set this basically precedent that whatever it costs doesn't matter, it'll make money, then leave that to the new CEO who again, when you start a new job, no matter who you are, it's challenging, right? So maybe that's not the number one thing he's looking at. And she's kind of going off of the old guard saying it costs what it costs.
Right.
Right. So how much of that is on sort of the old guard versus the new guard and Kathleen Kennedy, do you think, ultimately?
Well, I think that, Chapek, his mandate was to get Disney Plus up and running, right? So I don't really think at the beginning, especially because COVID happening,
right,
and that, what they thought was going to be this giant bubble that ultimately burst, but a giant bubble nonetheless at the time.
I believe they thought it was going to be on par or even greater than Netflix.
Right. So I don't think that, based upon when it came out, when Disney Plus launched, and based upon the property, I don't think that, and again, that they wanted this to be successful, I don't think that there were any restraints from corporate as far as getting everything that they need to make this successful. And I don't think that they stopped anything or had any requirements of what was being put out. They just wanted the content.
So do you think under a competent leader there was any way to make... I guess my question becomes, our opinion is that she wasn't competent with the properties that she was put in charge of, right? But my question becomes, do you think that a competent leader could have made this successful, or does ballooning budgets to that degree kind of set you on a path for failure no matter what?
No, I think that if you had somebody that had a different agenda than what Kathleen Kennedy had. Kathleen Kennedy had a specific agenda of what she wanted Star Wars to become.
Okay.
And I think that if somebody who was a fan of George Lucas, not somebody that wanted to usurp George Lucas, was given the reins.
Someone believed in the mythos and the lore that Lucas and even the people that wrote for the extended universe and everything that,
Yeah, and I also think if you had somebody competent, the budgets would have been more in line. But I think her constantly butting heads with writers, constantly butting head with actors, directors, and having to pay those people, and then ultimately they walk away from the project, and then you have to do it all over again. I think that a lot of the budget is because Kathleen Kennedy was a massive problem. I think she is ultimately the one to blame for all the failure.
Okay. So I guess that kind of brings us into the next kind of section that I wanted to talk about, which is sort of the fan narrative versus the reality of things, right? So to me, I think that, analytically, there is a certain point where, a ballooning budget, no matter how good something is, there's a line on what it can cost.
Sure.
For it to be considered successful on the back end, right? You can't spend $500 million or $1 billion, James Cameron style, and expect that to work every single time.
Right.
So I think that's part of it. I think the other half is, like you said, someone that doesn't have this idea or respect for sort of Lucas's Star Wars, right? Because she made it very clear from the time she got in that this was going to be Kathleen's Star Wars.
Right.
And I think that caused her to be a real lightning rod for fan hate, So I wonder how much of that kind of contributes to, you've already set this precedent that your built-in fan base hates you.
Right.
How does that make the mountain to climb for success that much harder?
Well, when you show the level of disrespect to George Lucas's Star Wars that Kathleen Kennedy did right out of the gate, then you've already, you've already poisoned the well of the Star Wars fans that are there. And then you double down by saying, what I'm looking for are new fans. I don't really care about the existing fan base because we want this new modern audience to now be the fan base, and we don't care about you old boys anymore. Those are the things where you lost. And again, even with all that said, everybody was still willing to give Star Wars its chance because, again, we love Star Wars so much that, hey, maybe this is just a talking head spouting off stupid shit, but the product is going to be George Lucas quality. So even though you did that, you still had the opportunity to keep all of those fans and add on to it. But everybody went in with at least a little bit of cautious, like, I don't like what I'm hearing, so now I'm kind of worried about what's coming.
Right. I get it. I guess where I kind of get concerned with this whole situation, right, is I think it's right that she's gone.
Yes.
Right? I don't think that she was really the right person to lead these particular IPs. But where I get nervous and where this comes more around like the fan narrative versus reality is I get nervous because a lot of fans are treating this like Return of the Jedi. Right? Like we've blown up the Death Star, the Emperor's fallen down the two, and it's like that's a very fantastical way to look at this, like the villain's been defeated sort of thing. And I don't think that's the reality of the situation.
No, you can't look at it for the fact that your new co-president, the head of creative, is the guy that's been the head of creative for all of Disney Star Wars. So you're not getting any change. There's nothing other than, Kathleen Kennedy, but the creative team that worked under Kathleen Kennedy is now in charge. So, again, we're not out of any woods yet.
Right. I just think there's this disconnect between fans and what's actually going on where, yes, I think it's a step in the right direction, but we shouldn't be we shouldn't be on Endor having a party.
Not at all.
So, before we continue to roast Kathleen Kennedy, though, let's again, we try to keep everything balanced on this podcast. So let's talk about a couple things that we think she did right.
Okay.
So I think that, and again, whether you want to give her credit for these things, she was ultimately the overseer, so she gets the credit. I think the launch of The Mandalorian was very successful.
Yep.
I think Andor, to a lesser extent, but critically, was well praised. I think there were a lot of good scenes in a lot of the shows.
Yeah. Here's the thing. She's not wrong in wanting to move past the Skywalker saga.
I agree.
That is the right direction. The problem is you don't shit on the Skywalker saga. You talk about the greatness of maybe one of the greatest movies ever made, but then you say, I want to now take this into a different direction from that. And she was right in that was what you should have done.
I agree. I think her, to her credit, that is the right way to go. But with what you're saying, and I think I agree with you, you treat the Skywalker saga as the mountaintop.
Absolutely.
Because it is. Because it is. And then and nothing you're ever going to do is going to achieve, and this goes for the majority of IPs that are out there.
Right.
If there is an IP with a baked-in fan base, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever caused those fans to congregate is the mountaintop. You're
Right.
never going to be better than that.
No, and that's the thing. You are looking at one of the greatest movies ever made.
Right.
One of the greatest.
I mean, for when it came out,
trilogies.
it was a revolution. Like, people had not seen things like
No.
this.
So, again, you have to now you can say I'm looking to try to mimic that, and rightfully so. That's what you should have done. But you cannot try to disparage in any way, shape, or form what was pre-existing.
Right. You don't crush the old gods to build the new.
Right. So if she treated with the love and care and respect that we the fans have, if she's shown that same level of love for the George Lucas Star Wars, but then said, but I want to then move past the Skywalker saga into my own era, which she wanted to do the High Republic. If she had done that, that would have been the correct move. So she was right in her theory.
Her trajectory was right. The ship was pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, it was execution that was completely off.
Right. So, and I think, as I said, Mandalorian, the first couple seasons were really, that's a high point, I think, of the Kathleen Kennedy era. I would even argue to a lesser extent, The Force Awakens, people were not, when that ended, people weren't throwing their hands up at this point.
No.
Nobody was, maybe there was a little bit of like, I expected more.
Yeah.
But nobody was hating on it to the degree that they hated on, say, The Last Jedi or anything like that.
I mean, is it a mimic copy of A New Hope? Sure, absolutely it is.
Right, but that just goes to show that, the original source material is so strong that even throwing a fresh coat of paint on it will keep your core at least interested in it.
And the thing is, it was what you were hoping for was a launching pad for new fans and to show old fans this is familiar. Right. So you did that. You accomplished that, and everybody was like, okay, it's not original, but
it seems like we're heading in the right direction.
Right. Let's see where it goes.
Right.
I'm on board.
Right. We have, new heroes still related to the Skywalker saga, but not Han, Luke, and Leia. And again, I think when Force Awakens came out and ended, it had a phenomenal run.
Yep.
And I still think Star Wars fans were on board. You had Kylo Ren. People were interested in that character. It was distinct enough from Darth Vader where, you had that possibility of like a very interesting villain there. Mm-hmm. So I think she was riding a high there.
Yep.
And then I think Mando came out, right? And that was also a high point.
Yeah.
And, Andor, I would say, again, even though it didn't get the views, critically that was a solid television show. So I would say, to sit there and say that everything she touched was filth is just simply not true.
No, because again, we had the final season of the Clone Wars that was in there that did okay, and some of this other stuff, no one watched, virtually almost no one watched Skeleton Crew. However, people that did watch it said, you know what?
It's good.
It's not bad. It's really not Star Wars, but it's not bad. But again, it didn't get much recognition whatsoever. But it's not, everything wasn't The Acolyte, which was just complete and utter garbage.
So there's, there are some gems in there, right? And then regardless, whether this is the legal team and everything, some of the video games that came out during her reign are also very, very successful.
Sure.
You had the Jedi Survivor series, right? Mm-hmm. Cal Kestis. That's a solid
Very
win there.
solid.
Right. You had the announcement that Knights of the Old Republic was coming back. That's all under her.
Yeah. And
watch.
in the first few of the when the High Republic comic books came out, it started off pretty strong. People gave it a chance. It the first couple of volumes did okay. It fell off a cliff, but there was the start of it. There was potential.
All right. So that's I think that's a good point there. Let's talk about what she did wrong here. Probably a longer list here. I think one of the the earliest signs that there was trouble, that there was blood in the water, was the lack of unification on the sequel trilogy.
Sure.
Right? I mean, to go from The Force Awakens, which again was a high point, into The Last Jedi is a huge red flag.
Yep.
Because, I mean, you took everything that was already laid out and to me, that's really the moment that the car kind of hit the wall, sort of. And it was just like, oh, everything you thought you knew about Star Wars is wrong. And I think The Last Jedi is really what started that.
Yeah, The Last Jedi was what split the fan base and drove off the majority of it. But
and here's the thing, you can put that on Rian Johnson if you want to. But Rian Johnson is not a terrible filmmaker.
No, I mean, his Knives Out series are doing tremendously
that's what
well.
I'm saying is, if you look at his other works, this isn't like some guy they got off the street that's just some bum that's like, I'm going to fuck Star Wars up.
Yeah. No, the biggest mistake in this has been talked about ad nauseum, and I'm just going to add on to it. The biggest mistake that was allowed was turning a boy's brand into a girl's brand. That was the giant mistake that killed Star Wars.
I would even alter that statement a little bit. I think it was turning a brand that was generally geared towards boys, which I agree with, to try to make it geared towards everyone. And when you try to make something for everyone, no one likes it.
Right. And obviously the ultimate mistake is Rey. Rey is the ultimate mistake. Because you can't have.
Well, I mean, it's just what Rey symbolizes, right?
Right.
I mean, and it's such an awful bastardization of everything. It's Palpatine's granddaughter, who ultimately says that everything the Skywalkers did is meaningless, and it's just like she, her DNA is from the bad guy, though.
Right. And the thing is, and when I say that, Star Wars was always for everybody. It was never non-inclusive. We have Leia. And
Ahsoka.
Right. But I'm saying the originally.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, girls who love Star Wars loved it for what it is.
Right.
They didn't need it to be turned into something that they didn't want, because again, it's okay to have product. Barbie's a good example, right? Even though Ken was the star of that movie and got all the accolades after it was all said and done, realistically though, you made a movie that was geared towards who likes Barbie, and if boys want to watch it, they are free to do so. But you can't have it, you can't just make everything for everybody. If you like it, you will like it for what it is, and you will appreciate it for what it is. And you don't need to see yourself on screen to like it. And, changing ultimately what Star Wars is, what it's all about, what it meant for generations, and shitting all over it and saying, I don't give a fuck about that stuff anymore. It's all about Rey.
Right. So forgetting who your audience is and trying to take an established brand and gear towards a different audience.
Right.
Is probably one of the main things I think she did wrong. Mm-hmm. I'd also say that announcing projects that never came to fruition, that's a huge
terrible.
That's a
terrible.
Don't announce them.
Right.
Don't announce them until you have the contract signed in blood and they're ready to go.
Right. I mean, look at this. You know, she had Daisy Ridley come out on stage in 2023 to announce that new Rey movie. Daisy Ridley just the other day said, well, it's not coming out, you know, yeah, we're still doing it, but it's not going to be 2026, maybe 2027. Maybe 4 years later.
Right.
You know,
so what
like
you've done
you can't do that stuff.
You can't hype a project out. You know, that's shovelware. That's vaporware. That's something that you've announced that does not exist.
Right.
And so, you know, you can't do that. You can't build your brand off of vaporware. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another huge failure on her part. Mm-hmm. I think another huge failure, and this I think is probably less on her and more on Iger and Chapek, is the oversaturation of Disney Plus.
Oh yeah,
right. So I mean, I think she takes more of the blame from a quality perspective. Mm-hmm. But I think that, you know, Chapek, Iger, right? Because he's you know back till the end of this year. Mm-hmm. Pushing for the saturation, and I understand to a degree where it's coming from. You want to make a Netflix killer, right?
Sure.
And there's just simply not enough content.
Right. I mean, you know, Marvel suffered the same fate. You know, they did it to all their right.
All their IPs
exactly.
Did.
Yeah.
So,
too much. They asked for way too much content.
Right. Without getting too deep into the mistakes of Disney Plus, I think that was a huge failure on even the higher ups above her.
Right.
But you know, if they came and, you know, if she released 9 bangers out of 11, it wouldn't be as much of an issue with oversaturation because they were all bangers, but they weren't. And then I think ultimately, you know, throwing the lore book out the window is probably the biggest sin.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, a couple other things. You know, in The Force Awakens, you never had Leia, Han, and Luke share screen time. Gigantic mistake. Like you can't make a bigger mistake in a movie than that.
Again, I think a lot of that, you know, and this kind of rolls back to that fan narrative versus reality. Like, how much of that is her, and how much of that is, you know, J.J. Abrams and the writers and things like that. You know what I mean?
But,
like, I don't
but again,
expect...
you're the executive. I would have that's something you have to push that as we need that to happen in this movie.
So maybe that's the first red flag that things were awry, is that she didn't care enough to actually give the fan service, you know, that moment.
Like, there are some things you have to, as the head, you have to say, here's my bullet points of what I need in this movie. And, you know, like, I don't give her, like, that is on her, right? When Han gets killed and she hugs Rey, not Chewie, that's on J.J. Abrams. Like, I don't give Kathleen Kennedy...
Right. I think I agree with you there.
You know what I mean?
Like, a moment like that is on J.J. Abrams.
Right.
A moment where you don't have the three of them sharing the screen is on Kathleen Kennedy.
That is something you have to say to J.J. Abrams on day one.
I want all three of them.
There's got to be a scene. Right.
Right. Even if it's one scene, I want all three of them together.
Absolutely. That is on her.
Okay. So... you know, I think that's fair, you know, and again, I don't want to go too deep into what she did right, what she did wrong.
Sure.
But there, you know, again, like anybody, she had some pros, she had some cons. Mm-hmm. Before we move on from that, what mistakes do you think hurt the brand the most long term?
The Force is female.
You think that's
the Force is female
you think
killed?
The Force is female killed.
Star Wars is dead today because she immediately came out and said the Force is female.
Now, do you think if she took a more balanced approach and said the Force is for everyone, that would have been better?
It would have been better, But I don't think you need to say that because it always was. I think that was a given. Like you don't need to make those type of announcements. Star Wars was never non-inclusive.
All right, so you think drawing a hard line based on gender is ultimately
that's what killed Star Wars.
That's the biggest mistake she made that hurt the brand long term.
Absolutely biggest mistake.
Okay. I would say for me, the biggest mistake that she made was going into this endeavor without a plan.
Sure.
Because I mean, she had musings of a plan, but I think when you're going to handle an IP this big, this sacred to the fan base, you better have a black and white plan. And I think that goes for Star Wars. I think that goes for Marvel. And I think Marvel had a plan, and they ran out of road.
Yep.
But Marvel was very successful when they had a plan.
Yep.
And I think, her big, to me, the whole force is female and the gender politics and all that bullshit, I think that, anytime you want to divide people, that's going to hurt. But I think ultimately what truly hurt the brand was having someone take the wheel of this ship without an actual plan in place on what Star Wars was going to be over the next 10 years. Like Marvel had a plan for 10 or 15 years, right?
Yep.
And they executed that, and it was a huge success.
Yeah.
And instead of, by year 7 writing out the next 10 or 15 years, they didn't, not to get into it, but Star Wars got into it with no plan.
Yeah, but see, here's the problem with that, right? I agree to what you're saying, but also the caveat I'm going to say is I think she did have a plan. I think her plan was rejected immediately, and then she had no plan. The plan she had was immediately rejected. So
what I say stands, though.
Right.
It's just there's no backup plan.
She had no pivot.
She
had no pivot plan.
Right. And so what
had one idea.
What that does is that you can't be out in the middle of the ocean, so to speak, without a plan on a ship of this size.
Yeah, she had one idea, and she was not going to change course on that idea. And even when the returns were not there and the audience left and she saw all the online negativity, she did not have the hubris to say, okay, maybe my plan is not good enough. We need to pivot to something else. She was like, nope, fuck you people. I'm the genius. We're going to keep going forward. And now Star Wars is dead.
All right. So what changes now that she's gone?
Nothing. But here's the thing, right? As I just said a moment ago, Dave Filoni, who's now the head of creative, has been the head of creative. He's all the disasters that you see, Dave Filoni has been lockstep with Kathleen Kennedy on them. So,
well, here's my opinion on this, right? Is I don't know how much of a yes man Filoni was, right? Because here's the thing, is that when he was working with George Lucas on the Clone Wars, a lot of good shit came out of that. Right. So I don't know if he's yes manning her and now she's gone and maybe some of that Clone Wars magic can cut. So I agree with what you're saying on the fact that, he was right up there with her, yes manning her, being the kiss ass. I don't disagree with that.
Right.
But I think what's come out of Filoni, maybe previous to Kathleen Kennedy, makes me go, okay, now that she's out of the picture, well, who are you really, Dave?
Right. So here's the thing, and I fully agree with what you just said. Here's the thing. What we just talked about is, wanting to get out of the shadow from the previous regime, right? That's what Kathleen Kennedy wanted to do. Dave Filoni knows Star Wars is dead. Dave Filoni knows that all of those ideas are dead in the water. Dave Filoni now no longer has to answer to someone, budget-wise, sure, creatively, no. So the other thing is Dave Filoni the type of man that Kevin Feige isn't or hasn't been for the last few phases? Can he bring in the right people and allow them to say, here's what we got to do? And him just saying, here's the bullet points of where we need to go, do your thing. Or is he going to say, nope, we need this to stay the course, and you're just going to keep on putting out the same slop?
I don't know. It's hard.
We don't know.
It's hard to say. So that's where I think the future is a little uncertain. But I try to be, again, this is a property that I've loved since I was a child, right? And I try to look at what Filoni has put out, right? And when he was with George, I would say the bulk of what he was producing was solid. Most of the Clone Wars is really good shit.
Yeah. I don't dislike Rebels. I think Rebels,
I agree.
For the first few seasons was a solid show. It fell off a little bit at the end. It got a little bit out there. But
I'm curious to see, and I think this is, and I know this property to me is sort of a transition property, because I'm sure behind the scenes they knew that Kathleen Kennedy was leaving, right? I'm sure this wasn't like a surprise to the people that
definitely
know.
not.
So I'm curious to see what this Maul television show does, right? Am I super excited for it? No. I don't know that we needed it or anything.
I'm tired of Maul.
But I'm willing to watch it. Sure. Because I think this is a transition show, right? I think probably Filoni had his fingers in it a little bit more than Kennedy did. And if it's good, that's a good indication of maybe where we're heading with the Star Wars property.
Yeah, and I don't, the problem is that the next couple movies that are coming out, she still is the producer on, right? So Starfighter and Mandalorian and Grogu, she, has her fingers in those. So I don't know that we're going to see, again, Filoni is going to do Ahsoka season 2, but these things are already done, and Kathleen Kennedy was there for them.
Right.
So it might take, 5-6 years from now before we actually get rid of the Kathleen Kennedy era and move into something else.
Well, I'm just curious to see with this Maul show, because animation was really the sweet spot for Filoni too. And
that was his thing.
And it always seems like with animation, pretty consistently, the bigwigs keep their fingers off it because they're not interested in it. So I would be. I'm curious to see what Maul does. I know it just came out, so I haven't.
I mean, the thing with Filoni is, was he a yes man because he wanted this job, and he did what he needed to do to get to the position he's in.
That's my hope.
Right, and that is all of Star Wars fans' hope. But or is he the guy that has been overseeing creative for the last 6 years with all the flops? I mean, we don't know yet, and it's going to be a while before we find out. So there is optimism, but it's very minimal.
All right. So before we end the breakdown, what does Star Wars need going forward?
What it needs is see, the thing is, you can't give it what it needs, because you can't put the respect back on the original trilogy that has been destroyed.
You can't close Pandora's box.
No. What you need is, you need to move past the Skywalker saga and start telling brand new stories within that universe with all new characters. You cannot go to Rey. You cannot go. The hunt for Ben Solo needs to stay as dead as Ben Solo. You need to redo Star Wars from the ground up. Those should be tales. The Skywalker saga, Rey, those should all be tales that are passed down from generations. They all happened, just like, we have stories from George Washington and Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Tales, it's tales from the Star Wars universe.
Right. And now you move into all brand new characters and an all brand new timeline. You try to pay respects to what came before it as much as you can, but you have to get away from everything that has happened before, up until that point when you make something new.
Okay. So for me, I agree with you. I think it's time to, move away from the Skywalker saga. I think that you have plenty of material, right? I think you take a look into Legends, see what's real solid in there, and work off of that. There's incredible villains that you can work off of. You have Bane.
Yep.
You have Nihilus. Those are very cool villains that you can tap into that has fan love.
Yep.
That you can utilize telling stories.
Sure.
And the beauty of it is you're not limited to the past or the future. You want to tell a story 500 years before the Skywalker saga? Do it.
Yep.
You want to tell a tale 500 years after the Skywalker saga? Do it. Don't shit on the lore anymore, right? And I think ultimately, not that I think it would happen, you retcon the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Again, that's an idealist speaking. I think if you could do that, that would be phenomenal for the series. But I think if we're working off of reality and what we can do moving forward and what Star Wars needs, is I think it needs solid tales that aren't based on Skywalker. And I think you already have a source that you can tap into. You don't have to pull this shit out of your ass.
Right.
You have Legends. And utilize that. I think you also need to hire people that love Star Wars. I'm so sick of this movement of Hollywood hiring people for established IPs that either hate or don't know the IPs.
Right.
You can be the greatest writer in the world, and if you hate or don't know the IP, you're not going to do well in this universe.
Right. I think that if I'm Dave Filoni, the first thing I do when I'm hiring writers and directors is I say, this isn't yours. Understand that right from day one. We cherish the lore. This isn't yours.
No, you're writing a Star Wars.
Now,
you're writing a Star Wars script.
Right. From there, it better be okay to be in this universe by not destroying any canon, any lore, and not disrespecting all of the original properties that have been created. You are hired to write something. It's not yours. This is mine, and I'm giving it to you to create something from it.
So that's what I'd go for creative changes. Structurally, I think I agree with you where, the Book of Skywalker should be closed and we should open up other books in the Star Wars universe. Creatively, I think you need to hire people that care about the property. Enough of this bullshit of you don't know it or you don't like it, but you're a good writer, so write anyway. That shit has to stop.
Right.
I think as a whole in Hollywood, but specifically for this segment, I think that needs to stop in the Star Wars universe. From a business perspective, I think you condense the budgets.
Yeah, you have to.
That's truly
you have
what I
to.
think you do is you tell people you have this much, you got $80 million to make the show, make it. If you can't make it for $80 million, fuck off, and I'll find someone that can.
Yeah, you have to bring the budgets down because the streaming is not what they thought it was going to be.
Well, especially now where the the IP has taken such a hit.
Well, yeah, not only is it taking a hit, but it just came out the other day that Disney Plus has not grown viewership in 3 years.
Well, there's nothing. There's nothing on there. I think the way that you view this is you went into uncharted territory with Disney Plus, right? You did. It wasn't.
Sure.
do I think it's a complete and utter failure? I think you have. I think what's interesting about the whole situation is you have the possibility of having a very successful streaming service, right? Because you own Hulu now,
Right.
and you have Disney Plus, and I think ultimately you should combine the two of those.
Well, that happens next month.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that should be done.
Yeah.
Right. So now what you've done is you have this great streaming platform that has a ton of content on it, right? I think for original content, I'm not saying stop making it, but I think especially for Star Wars, because again, that's today's topic. I don't want to go too deep into it, but for Star Wars, you make smaller budget, tighter shows, right? And whether that's animation or whether that's live action, you don't make them as frequently, and you make these tight, cheap shows. And then ultimately, if you have quality content, you'll be able to rebuild trust in the franchise. It's going to take time, though.
Yeah.
So this shit is, it didn't fall apart overnight, and it can't be put back together overnight.
Right.
So that's the breakdown for this week. All right, let's get into off the cuff.
Okay.
So what's your take for the week?
So I want to talk about some castings that have happened recently that is generating some noise online. That some of it I agree with, some of it I don't, and I want to get your take on this. So we got the first look at Lara Croft, Sophie Turner.
Sophie Turner, yep.
Right. What is your impression of that first look?
I was fine with it.
So, do you, if you take it out of context, right? If you saw that picture, would you think she's dressing up for Halloween?
So I it's hard to say because when I saw it, right? When I saw it, I was like, oh, it looks like a video game.
Accurate, suit accurate, like clothing accurate for sure.
Right. So I think when I saw that, right, I was like, oh, okay, so they're going with like a video game sort of version of it. Now that being said, like quality wise, I expect it, if that's just a first take and like, hey, we have some refining to do, sure. But I think like, oh, you're going to dress her up how she dressed in the video games? I'm fine. Like, I know it got a lot of hate.
Yeah. Look, the thing about breast size is ridiculous to me.
Okay.
For the fact that, well, how many actresses are endowed enough? Like, that's a very limited amount. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
If you're going really accurate.
Yeah, but that being said, like, that ultimately to me that doesn't matter.
No, and that was a big thing, and I'm like, I don't care about that. I care more about like the red hair. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
That was a little off because because that makes it look like her. Like, this is the Amy Adams, Lois Lane thing to me again. You know what I mean?
Like, here's the thing. When I saw it, right, my initial response was, oh, that pretty much looks like the video game. Like, the red hair's a little stupid, but like for the most part, I was like, I knew who that was. I didn't need an article for that, right? I was like, oh, that's Lara Croft,
yeah.
Right? So to me, but again, I'm coming at it from someone that played the video games when I was younger and stuff. To me, that's a win. Because if I can see that picture, right, and go, oh, that's Lara Croft. Now, if you showed me a picture of Angelina Jolie from the original movies, I would have no fucking idea. So looking at it, I'm like, oh, okay, I get that. Now, what I think is interesting is, Tomb Raider got a reboot, right?
Yeah.
And they're continuing that on into the future, that rebooted franchise, right? With the new version of Lara Croft. So I think it's interesting that they went with sort of the 90s style of Lara Croft than with the new one. But having seen it, yeah, the red hair I think is weird. Like, and it's not even her red hair. It's like a weird red-haired version, But I would say if that's the vision they're going to do with it, like, I knew who it was, so...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's as bad as everybody's making it out to be.
I thought the hate was was definitely over exaggerated.
Yeah, I think
sure.
it's a little cosplay like, but
same. Like I said, I
but we're
thought
not
it was
seeing
a little
her
cosplay
in the show. This is just photos, right? So
the reason I'm
be her
forgiving,
cosplaying.
The reason I'm forgiving of that sort of thing is because I remember when they dropped the Dark Knight, like, Joker images, like, before he was Joker, and I was like, this looks stupid as fuck. And then we got what we got, and it was like, okay, you cannot base, what this looks like. This is just, they dressed her up, right? And then they took a picture, and it's like, here's the concept of the character, and then they'll finesse it from there.
So I think that is getting way too much hate. Now, the show may be terrible. We don't know, because it's not out. We haven't seen it. But I don't think she doesn't look good enough.
All right. So the casting of Sophie Turner, you think, is unmerited hate now? All right. What else you got?
But the one that I find even more so,
okay,
the Masters of the Universe trailer came out.
It did.
I think it looks awesome.
I think it looks awesome, too.
Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms. You got a problem with them race-swapping Man-at-Arms?
No.
What would be the need for him to be white?
There's no need.
Right. So, I don't...
Let me ask you this, though, real quick. I don't want to go too far off topic, right? Do you think there's any universe, right, where they could make Masters of the Universe, right, as gay as the cartoon was? No way, right? No way.
No.
It would be awesome.
Yeah.
It would be awesome if Skeletor was like...
I would love it.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
And, they're all, but I would say, one, Man-at-Arms can be any race.
Yeah, I'm not... First of all, you have, a high-quality actor playing the part, right?
Top tier.
Right. But I don't... And we've talked about this numerous times before.
He has to have the mustache, though.
Yeah,
and he does.
Well, he does.
Right, I'm just saying, like, if he didn't have the mustache, I would be upset.
But the thing is, we've talked about this many times before. Unless it changes the whole dynamic of the character and it makes no sense, and now you can't, and you're ruining lore because of it, why can't Man-at-Arms be black? And I don't want to hear, like, everybody in that... Look, it came out in the 80s. 99% of the characters are white. It is what it is, okay? And I'm not saying, we should apologize for that. I'm just saying...
No, but, again, we've talked about this in depth, DEI and everything, there was a need for that when it came about because there was not diversity, equity, and inclusion. There wasn't. There wasn't enough of it. And that you can look at 80s properties and stuff and go, oh, I see what you're talking about. So I didn't even have a second thought as Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms.
And Tila is... it must be mixed race or something. I don't know the actress well enough, but...
Big deal.
But what I'm saying is, it matches. Right? Like we talked about with Batgirl, right? When they cast Batgirl as black, well, Gordon is black, so therefore...
It would be weird if she wasn't.
Right, it worked.
Right.
Here's the same thing, right? Father and daughter.
Right.
She might be a mixed race, whatever, who cares? But there's nothing...
But that
there's
just goes
no
to show
reason
you,
Man-at-Arms needs to be white.
Right, and that goes to show you, and I think this is... this is why we try to keep our podcast honest, right? Is that to me, it's very easy to listen to rage baiters and stuff like that. And it's very, very easy to listen to hype men. And I think when you do that and then form an opinion based off of that shit, ultimately what we get for the content is shit. Because it's shit feedback, and then they take that shit feedback and they make shitty stuff.
Right.
So, like, who fucking cares who's playing Man-at-Arms? Who cares who's playing Tila? if they act the parts and the story is good, I don't know that the story is going to be good. I know,
Right.
I know visually,
Yeah.
I'm very happy with where we're
Right.
at.
And but the funny thing is, right, as great as Skeletor looks, right, and
It's
he
Jared
looks
Leto.
great. It's Jared Leto, right? And people are complaining, well, Jared Leto, not a great actor. But okay,
But
so if he's
here's
not a
the
great
thing.
actor, but it's what I'm saying is you're a hypocrite, right? You're
Right.
saying he looks awesome, but he's not a great actor. Idris Elba is a great actor, but he does it because he's not white. Like, you can't have it both ways.
I agree. And I think that's sort of the bigoted bullshit that we don't need.
Right.
You know? And my hope with Jared Leto is that, this is... I don't think Jared Leto is a leading man.
No.
Right? I think he's much more suited for roles like these. And I think that if you give him this, my hope is that he can run with it. Right?
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
You got any other castings?
No. What do you got?
So, my off the cuff this week is I like when shows come out one episode at a time.
Okay.
Because it makes me think about them and talk about them with my friends way more than binging
Sure.
a show.
Well, I mean, again, because you can only have one conversation.
Well, it's just
over.
Right. And
There's no anticipation. There's no thought of what might happen.
There's no theories. There's
Right.
there's no nothing. And for example, right, you have the Fallout TV
Yeah.
show that just came out, and that came out week by week, right?
Yep.
And it's so fun to theorize what's going to happen next
Sure.
week, right? And you're talking about it with your friends, and you're talking about it over the course of the series instead of it being a blip on the map and then disappearing for 2 years until the next show comes
Yeah.
out. When Stranger Things Season 5 released, right? All anybody was talking about was the quote-unquote secret episode that was going to drop.
Right. Then, yeah, that was never a
Right.
thing.
So instead of getting fan theories and what's going to happen next, that to me is sludge. Oh, they're going to drop a secret. That's sludge. So I'm having way more fun talking about Fallout than
Yeah.
I did talking about Stranger
Yeah.
Things. So the addict in me loves to binge watch.
Sure.
Right? But the fan in me, there's something special about being episode by episode, talking about it, digesting what's going to happen next.
Well, but it's also digesting the episode you just watched.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to sit there with it.
And think about it.
Right. And that's what I loved about Welcome to Derry, right? We had that
Right.
same thing
And
there.
That's the thing is that, it seemed like it had disappeared for a while. HBO has always kind of gone that route. And so with the Netflix merger, I'm a little nervous about that, but it even seems like Netflix with some stuff is doing sort of this week by week release date. I know with a lot of their animation, like their anime stuff, they do week by week. The Stranger Things release was clearly just a ploy to get more, steal those subscribers for 3 months instead of one.
Right.
But to me, there's something really fun about the Welcome to Derry. I was thinking about it for months. I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens in the next episode.
Well, that's the thing. You have to sit with it. You have to be able to digest what you just saw.
Well, it's the difference between a quick dopamine hit and sort of that,
Right.
Extended release sort of thing.
And the thing too is, if you sit and talk about it with your friend the following day, and your friend tells you something that you missed, right? It's different if you go back and watch it, and then you still can build theory into because you don't know what's coming, right?
Right.
So there's still something about it, like, oh, I didn't catch that. I'm going to go back, watch it. Okay, now I've caught it. Now I got a different theory as to what might happen. Whereas if you miss it and it's binged, okay, you can go catch it, but you already know what's going on.
Or you can just keep watching, right? You don't have to sit with it at all.
But sitting with it is part of the fun. As much as it you can't wait for that following week, and it pisses you off that you have to wait an entire week to get it. It's still fun sitting with it for that week.
So that's my off the cuff for this week.
Perfect.
All right, so let's get into the watch list.
Sure.
What have you been watching?
All right, I got a couple things.
Okay.
I got an old, I got a new, I got a like, and I got a hate.
Okay.
So I'll start with the old, which is a movie I'm sure you've seen. I've never seen it up until this point. I don't know why I didn't watch it. Train to Busan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, very
awesome
good zombie movie.
Now, I will say, I love the fact that the zombies, I like two things very much. One, the quick change from once they're dead to becoming a zombie. There's that quick change, and I like the fact that they are fast. I like that they are not plotting.
You like a 28 Days Later zombie.
Right. Now, the only I thought the movie was excellent. To me, this is a definite watch.
Okay.
The only thing I did not like was the ending with the father. And
yeah, but was it enough to hurt whether it's a watch or not? Okay.
No.
So you say Train to Busan is a watch.
Absolutely.
All right. What else you got?
The new movie that I saw that I absolutely despise, Black Phone 2. Okay. Absolutely despise that movie. It's so bad it ruins Black Phone for me. I hate this movie that much. Again, if you liked the Black Phone, I would say watch it because, it's...
I guess.
But I despise this movie.
Yeah, it was one of those ones for me personally, too, that most of the time... I thought it was too long.
Yep.
And most of the time, I kept thinking, like, what is the need for this?
Right. Not only was there no need, but you hurt the original movie, which I thought was a tremendously good... Not only was it a good movie, but it was such a good entrance into a horror movie with a great horror character, and now you've completely ruined it for me, and I think it's just absolute trash.
So that's a pass.
I would say if you want to watch it because you watched the first one, but I would say it's a hard pass for me. Terrible.
Okay.
What about you?
So, I caught Predator Badlands.
Okay.
I would give it a watch.
Sure. Okay.
My only strong... so what worked for me was visually it's great. It looks good, right?
Sure.
And I was kind of on the fence about that because I saw a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. Mm-hmm. And you see the fucking guy in the Predator suit, and I'm like...
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on here, right? So... But visually, I think CGI-wise, real good. Real good. Solid acting from the guy who played the Predator and Ellie Fanning. Mm-hmm. Very good. Liked all of that.
Okay.
The only thing that I kind of... I guess there's 2 points that kind of kept it from being great for me is I thought there was too much humor in it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's almost something to be said about the Predator being the bad guy in Predator movies, right? Because in this one, you're rooting. He's the good guy.
Right.
And so, it was kind of a weird sort of point to be at for me. Not enough to kill the movie, though.
Okay.
I think, I don't know that I would pay for it.
Sure.
But I think if you have it available on your streaming sites and everything, I'd give it a watch.
Okay.
And then what was the other one that I caught? I'm trying to think. It's been a while. I know it's been a while since we... I'll say that's it for now.
Okay.
I would say that the one that I caught was Predator, and I would give that... I I remember now. I watched Tires on Netflix. It's a TV show.
I never heard of it.
So I had kind of danced around it for a while. I had a couple of people in my friend group say, watch it. It's pretty funny.
Okay.
It stars Shane Gillis. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
The comedian?
The comedian,
okay.
yeah.
Yep.
And, I go through this phase where, I like him and then I don't like him. And I don't know if that's just saturation or whatever. Tires, though, very funny.
Is it?
Very funny show. I'd say give that one a watch.
Okay.
It is hilarious.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I found myself,
I never heard of it,
laughing out loud.
Really? Okay.
Several times. Yeah. So that's those are my two.
Nice.
All right. So let's before we cut this off, let's do the pulse.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
So for those of you listening, let us know in the comments. Do you think leadership changes actually fix franchises, or is the system the problem? Let us know. Send us a comment, shoot us an email, post it on our socials. We want to know. We want to hear from you guys.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Yeah. What's your opinion? Is it the same as ours, or does it differ? Tell us how we're right or wrong.
All right. So that's it for season 5, the opener. If you like this, follow the show, leave us a review, write us some comments. You know where we're at. CatalystCrafting.com is the main website. Catalyst Creations NH is the Etsy store. You can find us on social media. We'll post a link tree in the description of the video. If you can send us a follow, we really appreciate that. And we'll be back in 2 weeks talking about more pop culture.